Okay, we are live. Hello, 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 and welcome to Sacred Wellness. Today I am here with my co host, Keegan, and we are talking about where everything gets real, raw, and radiant. Today's episode is a love letter, a reckoning, and a revolution all in one. It's about what happens when we mother ourselves while mothering our children, and when we stop performing perfection and start embodying the healing that we truly deserve. We'll be sharing stories about how our daughters and us broke the generational curses and cycles. And we'll be talking about how our daughters live from such a more healed space than we were ever able to live through. You'll hear how we've rewritten outdated patterns, faced pain of the mother wound, and learned to love ourselves with the same fierce tenderness that we offer. So today, being a mother leaves no woman as it found her. I saw that quote this morning and I was like, how profound for this show to begin with that. So I want to say it again. Being a mother leaves no woman as it found her. So I want to talk a little bit about Keegan today. Childhood wounds and how they're opened in motherhood, and how our children really are able to heal that inner child within ourselves. And it's funny because when I look back at it, the first time I became a mother, I didn't know I needed healing. I didn't even know what that meant at that time. And
I thought that was so good.
who's thinking about that, right? When they become a mother. But being a mother
No,
really cracked me open in a way that I did not understand before, because I understood this unconditional love and this love
yeah.
that was so much greater than anything I'd ever experienced. So do you want to talk a little bit about that for you and how the childhood wounds that we have opened us up?
I agree with that 100%. I did not know that I needed healing too. I thought I already broke all the generational curses and I was on a full front path forward, know exactly what I want to do. And then I actually had a couple of miscarriages before I had Olivia. So it put me in a dark place at first, like right off the bat. And it became this thing like, I was a creator. I've talked about it before. I'm an artist. So I think when you are a woman and you understand that you're a creator, our most magical thing that we can do is bring life into the earth. So it was the first time in my life that I really felt like I was broken. And so miscarriage put me in this dark place. And then it became something that I wanted more than anything was to be a mother. And it was not something I was considering. And so I had this weird shift that happened within me where I went into darkness to then be brought out into light of motherhood. And some people go into the darkness with motherhood. And I went into the darkness first trying to become a mother. And I think that it set a foundation for me to start, evaluating myself
Mm-hmm.
and really, taking notice of my body and things that were happening in my body. So I am grateful for those losses because when I started carrying Olivia, I was so present with my pregnancy. And I still to this day like remember certain milestones of my pregnancy and the first time I felt her and the first time I experienced loss while pregnant and all these things. And this bond that I created with her was so conscious because I hadn't lost before.
Yeah.
So I knew she was going to be special and I knew she was going to change my life right off the bat. And I had her in Korea. So
There
you
you
don't get
go.
more shifted and turned around more than that.
Than being in another whole country, right?
Yeah. And it really scared me.
Yeah,
I think that's what it is fear. I don't know.
it is. And, I'm like you. So I also had two miscarriages before I had Sophia. Before then, if you just looked at me, I got pregnant. But, I had to have my tubes tied and then untied. And it took me, I had two miscarriages right away. And then it took me 8 years. I didn't want to get pregnant again. I didn't want to have another child. The losses were just too great. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, at 40, I became pregnant, and this time with a girl. So similar to you, I had this expansion and this growth. I knew I was more conscious, but I didn't really understand what that meant at that time.
Yeah.
I knew that having a girl now would be different because I wanted so much different. Not that I don't love my sons and that I didn't want the best for them and had them be independent and all that, but there was something about having a daughter now that was going to shift me immensely. And had I known then what I know now on my path, honestly, I don't know, because I feel like in past lives I didn't have children because I was so adamant about having children in this life from a young age. Like I got pregnant at 21 and I knew that I wanted children and I knew that I wanted a lot of children. And so I don't think in other lives I had it. But what happened with me with Sophia was, and it was so profound because I almost remember the exact moment, is when I had her, and she was born sick. So I had a ton of other things that were going on. But I had this moment when it was sort of like this betrayal to myself, because I was like, how could anybody ever hurt their child? And maybe it was because she was in a weakened state and I was in a weakened state, but I was like, how could anyone have a child that they profess to love and then cut them down, whether it's verbally, physically, emotionally, whatever it is? It's clear as day in my mind when I look back on those moments and see that. And I was like, how could this be? And so even then, I was not spiritually awake, let's say. It was just the beginning of when I was going to begin to shift.
I agree. I remember I had a C-section where they they knocked me out, and I remember them keeping her from me for like 6 hours, and I remember this like pain in my body that I was like, if you don't give me my child, I am going to burn this hospital down. Like I will find her. Where is she? And the moment that they brought her in and we connected skin to skin, I felt like the entire world shift. These eyes were so big and they were just looking at you. And I remember the first time we tried to feed her, she like was choking and I had this extreme panic, like she was going to die or something. And I had never loved anything like this before. Like it was so overwhelming. And I felt the same. I felt like, oh my God, how can you hold the world in your hands and not understand the power of this? How can you do that and not understand the elevation of this and what it does to your heart and what it does to your body? Like everything faded away. It was this survival and love and nurture and looking at yourself. It was a mirror of my husband. It was a mirror of myself. It was a mirror of all my ancestors. I could pick my grandmother's toes on her and the hair of another grandmother and the eyes, it was all of it wrapped into one. The best creation I had ever given myself.
And then it opened a door to look deeper into those things in yourself, because, a lot of us look at it. So becoming a young mom, I did things totally different than I did with my daughter, with my sons. I just always felt that I was difficult because that's what I was told I was. I was too much. I was too loud. I was too verbal. I was too outspoken. So I always felt like I was difficult to love. And then I have this child. And I understood that I was never difficult to love. It was those who had difficulty loving me for who I was. And I want to talk about this because I want to know if it sounds familiar to anybody out there. But did you hear the words, "Because I said so"? Did you hear, "Don't make me come in there"? What's another one?
Children should be seen and not heard.
Children should be seen and not heard. It's going to hurt me more than it'll hurt you.
Nope. I brought you in this world so I can take you out.
You don't know how good you have it.
Do as I say, not as I do.
That's a huge one because, today I speak about it often, and the complexity behind that. Do as I say and not as I do. So it's okay for you to do things that aren't necessarily, moral or value. But then I shouldn't do that. And I think about it because our children are our biggest mimickers, right? They watch everything that we do.
Our mirror, if you let them be. They are your mirror. They are
Yes.
literally a reflection of their leadership. So if your kid's an asshole, you better look in the mirror.
And I don't know how often I've said this. It's like, look at your kid. Where are their strengths? Where are their weaknesses? Because we all say, right? We all say we want our kids to do better than us. But how many of us still live in those wounds? And those wounds are so deep. Sometimes they're so embedded subconsciously, we're not aware of them. But I have met many, many people, men and women, who've said, I sound exactly like my mother.
Exactly. And because you may never listen to your parents, but you will always succeed in becoming them. You do, if you're not conscious of it, So if you're not choosing the parts that you like and throwing away the parts that you don't like, or reflecting in the parts that you don't like, then you are doomed to become exactly what you fear,
Yeah.
That's why taking this role as a mother it has to be reflective. It has to be. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah.
Or you'll become bitter and then be jealous of your child and say mean things, and you'll be fearful of everything that you suppressed in them.
Yeah, or they're doing everything that you couldn't do because you didn't have the tools.
Yeah.
And this show is not about shaming anybody or belittling them for that generation or what they came through, because that's not really what this is about. This is about honoring the cycles that we're able to break today because we have the power of our voice, because we learn the power of our voice through those things that occurred in our life, those experiences, those with a direct reflection, and then us having children, right? I remember like parents being very secretive with their children. They didn't want them to know how much money they made. They didn't want them to know there were any hardships going on in their life. And they sort of sheltered them into this space so that when something happens to them, they're like, oh my gosh, like it's detrimental. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like this shame, like you failed or something because you're having this, and then you never saw your parents walk through it, or you never saw anyone struggle through it. So then you feel like you're alone in it when you're not. It's so the same but different, generation after generation. And I'm really glad you touched on the fact that this isn't about shaming, because becoming a mother actually made me more compassionate for the women that came before me.
Yes.
And made me more patient for the women that came before me, because I was like, holy crap, like I can't imagine. I'll take it back to like just my grandmother. So, one generation removed, my mom and then her mother. Can you imagine like having children and not being able to have your own bank account without a man? Could you imagine having children and being in an abusive relationship and not being able to leave because you can't buy a house without a man? It was the law. You couldn't get a line of credit. You couldn't do anything. So not only were you a woman in a society that was, not allowing women to have power at the time, but women were fighting. They were fighting for their power. We were getting there. Our equality, I should say. We've always been powerful. But you're coming from these times where like you didn't have equality like that. So you're already losing your identity as a mother. And then to have no voice, how can you give your children a voice? Your children 9 times out of 10 in that situation are going to learn what to do or what not to do based on what they're living through, not based on a choice that they can make.
Right.
And I think that gave me a different feel for some of the bitterness that a lot of the women that came before me carried, because they didn't always pick the best partner. And so they were alone in it and they couldn't move in it. And I think it made me start peeling back that onion. Like, you didn't hate me. You hated yourself. You didn't hate me. You hated your choices.
Yep. And those choices, I think a lot of those generations have a lot of those regrets. They had to be sort of stoic. I remember, both of my grandmothers very stoic. We didn't show any emotion. Very rarely would we laugh, nevertheless smile, because they were just taught at that time to be very stoic. But I remember,
That they
vividly.
didn't have time to feel. That was the biggest thing.
Yes.
Like, I remember being told that I've always been super sensitive, super empathetic, super connected. And I was always told, you worry too much. You're too sensitive. You feel too much. Stop feeling. And I realize now, having a little fireball, that I was born to feel because I was going to be given the time to feel. I was going to be given the peace to feel. Where the women that came before me, they didn't have time to feel anything. They had to do. They had to move. They had to go. They had to put their big girl panties on and raise their family.
Yeah.
There was no feeling.
Shove it down. You don't want to feel that.
Yeah, you don't need it. You didn't need it.
Yeah. And that's a good point you make, because I think too, often when we talk about the mother wound and are having daughters or having sons, whatever it is for you, people are saying, oh, well, you're looking to your child to heal you. And that's not necessarily at all what I mean. My child didn't heal me. I healed me. But being a mother is what healed me, not having a child. She is that mirror, as you said. When I look at her and I see myself through her, it reminds me not only how sacred she is, but how sacred I am, and where I forgot that sacredness in
Yes.
myself because of the things that I was told. And, our words are powerful. When we talk about the words, right? What is that saying about the tongue?
I don't know, but Olivia and I were literally just having this conversation in the car because I was telling her there's two kinds of praise. You can pray for people and you can pray on people. And your discernment tells you which one is which. Because your words are manifestation. Your words speak existence. They are living.
Yeah. How many times do we say that? Just the mere word that we speak is absolutely, it has power behind it.
And I feel like it gives you the choice to heal, where you didn't even see, like you said before, like you didn't know you needed healing until you were a mother. I felt the same, but I didn't realize how much of my masculinity I was living in until I was a mother. I did not realize how much of a wall I had built in the world and how much of this tough girl ego that I had. And it goes nowhere with a child, and it goes nowhere with a daughter. You try to go toe to toe with a little girl with your divine masculinity, you're going to be met with a wall.
It's funny because, when you talk about, I laugh because when you talk about Olivia, she reminds me so much of Sophia. And there's a difference in their age now. Olivia is 9, almost 10,
Yep.
and Sophia is 15, almost 16. And when we met, they were really little. So I remember the times that Sophia was exactly like Olivia. And I laugh because it's so enlightening for me to see somebody else out there that has someone like Sophia that's so powerful, that will call you on your shit, that's
every
like
day.
in your face.
Every day. And I don't think it's disrespectful. And I've literally had people around me say, how do you let her talk to you like that? Blah, 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 blah. And I say, she's a reflection of my leadership. Have you heard me talk? If I don't like something, that's exactly how I tell you I don't like it. How is she disrespectful for telling you that you're out of line? Are you disrespecting her, telling her she's out of line? They are humans too. They are people too. They're just not layered with the bullshit of the world. They're layered with what you gave them.
Right. And it's funny to see it because that power, that radiance that they have, right? I remember thinking I was exactly like her, but I was broken down and broken down and broken down. And you get to a certain point where you're like, maybe it is me. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I don't deserve to be loved. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am too loud. And it goes back to that thing again. I don't know about you, but for me, it's like I've told her these things, right? And I want her to be able to rest and think on her decisions and really take her time and envelop this lifestyle that is conducive to her being.
Yes.
But do I give that to myself? No, I had to learn, and it took me a while, and I still go through it today because you touched upon it, that masculinity that exists
Yep.
within me. I'm still healing from that masculinity. So to see her be able to do it, but then for me, it's like that mirror again, right? I tell her, this is what you have to do. This is how you're supposed to go through this, right? I want to offer her that advice because I know I've been there, but then I don't do it
Yep.
for myself.
Olivia calls me on that. But we literally were just having this conversation in the car. I said to her that my job as a mother is to not give you my fears and my problems. They're supposed to be my cross to bear, my burden to bear. What I'm supposed to do is give you the stepping stone to see the world differently, you know? And because I have an issue doesn't mean it has to be your issue. You can go forward in life deciding differently, and what's most important is that you find who you are in this life. Mommy and daddy are supposed to give you the space to make mistakes, to show us your beast, because we were talking about anger and, letting the ugly out and the dark side of us out, because it's just as normal as the kind side of us. And that
Yes.
if we are super kind and we are super loving, then we have a mirror opposite of that. So our beast can be really intense. And growing up, you're supposed to be given the freedom to test that, so that when you go out in the real world, what is going to cross your boundaries? What is going to set that beast? What is going to move me? Because it's not always rainbows and butterflies. We also have to know the dark side of us too. And I think that when we are growing up in silent homes, or we're growing up with no feeling and reflection, then that beast starts eating away at you because you feel like that's wrong,
Yeah.
especially if you're not supposed to act a certain way, or do as I say, not as I do. And you have a very angry parent all the time, and then you're not allowed to be angry. Or you have a
Right.
parent that always has an attitude and you're not allowed to have an attitude. Then the darkness starts, you go inward. And I think that's what created that masculinity within me, to protect myself, be perfect, wear the mask, fit in here, fit in there, do this, do that. That's not feminine. That's not flow. That's not embracing, nurturing, and having open space to grow and see and receive.
Right. Embracing your individuality and your strengths, and also your weaknesses, because I know, as they get older, I think that's the time they push the boundaries the most. And that's the time that
Exactly.
they're looking at who are they really, and they're trying out these different things. Like, I love that my daughter is able to express herself individually through her art, or through what she wears, or how she acts. Whereas I look at myself and I had such a fear around acting that way or being a certain way. I had to
Yep.
fit in, and I had to change and numb myself down to be able to be accepted. Whereas I look at her, and I know there's so many more children like her that are able to embrace the uniqueness and share it. But there are still people that are around us in our family that are not healed, right? And they
Yep.
say things like, you shouldn't let her wear that much makeup. You
Yep.
shouldn't trust her. And I say things like, well, she's not me, number one.
Yep.
Number two, she's never given me any reason whatsoever to put her in this box, and have her
Oh,
be someone that she's not. I love that she can express herself. There's this picture I'm going to share later on my Facebook, but she has on colored socks, something on her arm, things in her hair, and she's just walking to the beat of her own drum. And I remember thinking, like, this child is so free, so loud with it. Like, here I am, this is me, love me or leave me. And I'm like, how powerful is that, to have somebody be in their individuality without being boxed in?
and how powerful is it to have a mom that can, take that breath of duality? Because we all have it. We all have that fear immediately that's like, oh God, what is the world going to do to our heart? Because Liv's the same. She'll wear two different color shoes, when you met her, she was in her Chuck Taylor phase where she had to have two different Converse colors. Literally had to
I
buy two
remember.
pairs. But I think too, like the duality of it, to be like, okay, this is my fear that the world is not going to receive her, right? That's our fear. But then we have to take that breath and say, but we're their mother. It doesn't matter if the world's going to receive them, because we have their back, and we don't
Yeah.
need to change who they are. We need to allow them to develop who they are. Because like you said, they're not us. They're not living our lives. They're not living the same traumas if you do the work right. So how can you have the same fear?
Right.
And that's a hard balance to maintain. I'm still working on it. You immediately want to be like, oh, but the world. And then you're like, no, we're creating a new world.
Yes. A new world, a new way of being.
Yeah.
I think often when people look about what we talk about, the mother wound just doesn't disappear. It's not like it's something that goes away, right? We've talked about this often. And even though Keegan and I are healing, right? There still are pieces of us that are unraveling. We're still going through, you just mentioned it, through this process. There may be this fear that comes up, but we still have to internalize that and say, what is this about? What is it really about? Is it about her being different or looking different, or is it about me and my past stuff? And I think you hit on that perfectly. Yes, you hit on it perfectly. It's like those things are still there, right? They may not necessarily be fully healed. I mean, when they're fully healed, you can look at her and say, oh, perfectly. You'll know, because there are parts of us that have healed fully, but there are parts of us that are still healing. I want our girls and all the girls to know that what we're creating, right? We are breaking down these old paradigms of this patriarchy, and we're given the power back, right? Because our power has been taken away over and over and over again. And it's still being taken away now today. I mean, you think about it, my grandmother was born in the 20s. This is 2025, and they're still trying to take away our power today, 100 years later. Why is this something that's acceptable?
Or manipulate how you view your power.
Or have a man tell me what I can do and can't do with my body.
Yeah. The patriarch also lives inside of you, because I have a little voice inside of me that tells me what I can and can't do. And I'm like, who are you? Your fear. And
who are you? Shut up.
Yeah, and I call it my science brain or my man brain. I always have to have an answer to it. But the most magical things don't have an answer. And that's where women are. Women are magic. Women are a mystery. That's why they've been amused for so many years. It's why we've had so many crimes on women and stuff, and rage and passion and all these things, because we are the mystery.
And we're a beautiful mystery and a confusing mystery.
We are, but like, there's so much magic. I want to bring back to magic. I was talking to you earlier about this. There's so much magic in it. And when we structure things too much, we don't allow for magic to exist. And it's literally the fundamentals of who we are. And if you don't like the word magic, you can, I don't know, say energy, or miracle. We are a miracle. There's still so much of this world that we don't have the answers for. There's so much of ourselves we don't have the answers for. Yeah. There's so much that we're navigating. And like you said, we are giving a voice. It's not just man isn't going to tell you what to do. No one, not even yourself. So you're even changing the dynamic of talking yourself out of something before you try it as well. Because you wouldn't talk your child out of trying something that you know is going to be good for them. You would never.
No.
So I had to see these reflections in myself too, how I talk to myself first before I try something. Why do I bully myself into trying something?
Or quitting, because I was that child that would quit everything. I try it, I didn't like it, I quit it. But I come to find out through my human design that that's the way that I learn. That was totally natural for me to be able to try it. I don't like it. I'm done. I move on. That's my curiosity, right? And that's why I'm so involved in so many different things. But you tell a child that's wrong. How do you tell a child that's wrong when that's natural to the way they are? And you're setting them up for this failure, this limiting belief in their mind now that's going to tell them, you're doing it the wrong way. You shouldn't try it. You should be sure, and you should never quit, and all this other bullshit. And it's like, I look at it today and I'm like, how is that possible? So I want to talk a little bit about how we can go through this mothering process. some tips to share how we can sort of move through this. I know big for me is validating my feeling and emotions. Um,
Yes.
Telling me, giving myself grace, right? I think that's one of the hardest things for me personally, is to give myself grace when something didn't work out right, or I didn't do it good enough, or for what I believe is good enough. Especially like you said, with being an artist, I have a big perfectionist thing, and it's
Yep.
never probably good enough for me. What about for you?
I feel the same because um not just validating my emotions, because it definitely is validating my emotions, but it's also allowing me to come back to it, if that makes sense. Because, like you, my human design says I'm supposed to try and quit a million things, which I've done in my adult life after I've gotten out from under my parents. But growing up with my parents, you weren't allowed to quit. I had to finish everything I started. That was their thing. And it caused so much resentment and so much hate. And it caused me to not try things because I would have to stick to it. You know what I mean? Or I'd have to plead this giant case of why I wanted to do something. And
Right.
then I was belittled or whatever when I didn't want to finish it, or when I didn't want to do it because of their investment or their time or their this, their that, you know? And so for me, it is validating my emotion, but it's also taking the time to reflect, because I think that's what pushed me into people pleasing and so
Yeah.
many bad situations, because I didn't know when to quit, because I wasn't allowed to when I didn't feel it anymore. So for me personally, writing does wonders for me, like journaling,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm very dual in my brain. I have to get both sides out. I have to talk it out in a sense before I can see clearly and see truly where it's coming from. And 9 times out of 10, it is some kind of fear or some kind of rejection that I experienced, or some kind of um, wound within myself that I don't want to look at, because I don't want to look at it, because then I have to revisit pain or something, you know?
Right.
And it is so important. And then when I have that time to sit and reflect and go back and read, I can give myself the grace, because I'm like, oh my God, look at the little girl here. She's so hurt, you know? I can
Yep.
I can read it in my words. I feel her and I see
Yeah.
her. And then it makes me open to my daughter, because she's magic and she deserves to see that.
Yeah.
Even the dark parts are magic. There's so much beauty and learning in the dark parts of us.
Absolutely. And the other part of that human design is not only trying things and then quitting or seeing if it's for you, is tuning in. I never knew the words tuning into your sacral, tuning into how that feels, because I am clairsentient, so I'm very feeling. Nobody ever told me tune in and see how this feels for you.
No, they told me I feel too much, and I literally, that is my spiritual gift. I can feel spirit. I can talk to spirit. I
Yeah.
feel rooms that I shouldn't be in. I feel places that I should be in. I know places I've been before. And like, you told me not to feel so long. You told me it was bad to feel. But
And then you
is that not
question
why
sort of
I've
that feeling, right? You question that, because then you're like, all right, I'm in a situation, I'm with these people. I know I'm not feeling good about them, but yet I'm staying here because of maybe the way it'll look, or yeah, pleasing them.
yeah.
Pleasing them and stuff. So, I think it's both. It's like, can you still mother your child and mother yourself? And I think it's a process, right, for each of us. And we always strive on this show that every one of us is so unique and so different. Some of the things we share may work for you, they may not work for you. It's totally how you are, how you internalize them, how you've experienced them, what you're going to do. But I know when you mentioned writing too, for me, it's one of those things that are so cathartic, because it allows me to not only journal about my fears, but where did I not get the nurturing that I needed? And was that from an outside and external source, or was it often through an internal source, because I had those wounds so embedded so deeply that I couldn't even nurture myself, because I didn't feel that I was lovable. I felt that I was a difficult person. I was a difficult child. I was a difficult wife, a difficult mother. And so you carry that throughout your life. And then when I'm journaling and I look at that, and then those nurturing pieces come up. Was it externally? Yes, that's what I was taught. But then internally now, who's doing it? It's me. 9 times out of 10, it's me who's doing it, because that pain, that trauma has not been fully healed, right?
Yeah. And I think that it allows you to see through your child's eyes when you do that. Because there's so many times that I remember what it was like to feel like that. And I can take off the layers easily because she's not layered, so she's seeing it raw and she's giving it to you raw. I'm the one that's layered. So I say sometimes that, like, I throw temper tantrums with her because I wasn't allowed to throw a temper tantrum.
I was just going to
I
mention
laugh
that.
about I wasn't allowed to buck up and say when something was wrong. There was a lot of strong-headed women around me that were jealous, but I had great women. I'm not just saying it's all bad. I had really great women that are still in my life today that are perfect examples, but I didn't see that they were examples of what I wanted to be until later. But for example, like, my mom, I love her to death, but she still doesn't understand this. If Olivia doesn't want to do something, like if she's not feeling it, she don't want to go somewhere, and she expresses to me, not, I don't want to do it because I want to sit on the couch and be a slob all day. No, like, if she's like, Mom, I don't feel like going there. I don't really like that person. It's not a good time for me. I don't like the house. I don't like the energy. I don't like this. I don't want to do that today.
Right.
Instead of immediately, I always want to be like, you have to do it because blah, 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 blah. And I don't do that at all anymore. I get angry. This is why I have to say to myself, you're angry because you don't want to do it either, Keegan. You're angry because she just told you the reasons that you don't want to go there, but you're a people pleaser and you think you have to. So I give myself the time now to throw a temper tantrum with my daughter, and I don't have to kick and scream. I can just use the word no because I'm an adult and it's freaking no. I don't have to give you an answer why.
Yeah.
And that feeling alone is freeing. And I feel like Olivia is growing intuitively because she's given the space to do that. She's not forced into these situations constantly that she doesn't want to be in. Or if she doesn't want to have, last year was an issue because she didn't want anybody for her birthday. She was having a really bad day that day. And she just said, Mom, Dad, I don't want to see anyone tonight. It's my birthday. I want cake with my mom and dad, and I want to watch a movie in my pajamas, and I don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
And I had to call family and say, you can't come over for cake. And I got cussed out by numerous people.
Wow.
Because I'm wrong. It's their birthday, apparently. This is about them, apparently.
Right. Seeing her on her birthday.
I know. And I had to be strong in that and not put that burden on her, and I just had to defend her choice. But this is hard. It's hard when you didn't come from somebody saying, you know what? I'm going to listen to you because you're a kid and I'm going to listen to you. It was never you listen to kids. They're an accessory.
I love that you bring that up because I was going to start with, like when Sophia would throw a tantrum or something, sometimes that immediate reaction is like total fear and shock. First of all, that she's having a meltdown. Second, I'm more masculine, right, in my approach to things. So I'm like, well, this is not acceptable. Like, what the hell are you doing? First of all, I'm like totally thrown off. I'm like, what the hell, and I'm like, God, like, you gave me a daughter. All right. What are you teaching me through this experience?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. It's like they have these tantrums, right? And you were never, ever, ever, ever allowed to express and have an opinion that you were not happy or you weren't doing something. No. So, for me, it was like learning through that, as you said. It's like allowing her the space to do that, allowing her to show me what I'm seeing in myself, and then allowing me to go through the process, because now, like you said, you have to notify these people that they can't come over, and who's going to get the brunt of that? You are. So you're dealing with all this other stuff, right? And you have to stand strong in your power with your family.
Which brings up all kinds of other triggers.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Other triggers, you're like, holy shit, like what is going on here? Did I sign up for all this? I want to reread that contract.
Yeah. Or like people telling me that you let your kid run your life. And it's like, no. She is a part of me and Justin, and she lives with us, and she's also our roommate, and she deserves an opinion.
What I want to know is why people, especially family members, think they have the right to insert their opinions, their ideas about how you should let your child live. Like, hello, this is my child. You have your children. You did your thing. This is my life, my child, right? It's like, why do people of that caliber feel they have the capabilities of doing that? Because I think before we didn't have the boundaries set, right? Before
Yeah.
we maybe would have caved and said, okay, yeah, let them come over. They want to come over, right? We're getting all this slack. But being able to stand in that, is really powerful. And I'm so glad that you shared that and we're able to go through that and show her such a powerful movement, a moment
Yeah.
for her.
I think too, like as women, we're bullied into submission,
Often.
So it starts there, and it would be so easy, like, you have a child. It's so easy to break their spirit. You can work so hard in building them up, and it takes one jerk out there to just destroy confidence, or destroy an idea or destroy a thought process. And I have to constantly remind myself that, like, my daughter's first bullies will never be in this home.
Absolutely.
Never be in this home. So if I am looking off the bat to control something, then I already know that I need to step away and take a pause in that, because there's nothing to be controlled.
Yes.
It's me that has to control my shit.
I was going to say, absolutely, because it is true. How many bullies, when you think about it, how often we were controlled to be quiet, agreeable, nobody else was to know what you're feeling, or, you wanted their approval. And how often did we not have those boundaries that now with our children, we're like, look, these are strict boundaries and we're not going to ever cross them, especially when it comes to them or other people in
Yes.
our family saying things or doing things. Because I think it's powerful, right? You think because they're in your family, you have a right to say something, and you do not have a right to say anything.
No, you had your time.
You had your time. You did your job.
Yeah,
Good luck, because I'm still healing.
Yeah, I've said it to elders before, like, you had your time to be a mother. Now it's my time, and I'll do it how I want. And if I'm raising a monster, then she's my monster, and I'll be proud of it.
Yeah, and we are all really doing the best that we can with what we have. And I think when we're the generational cycle breakers, often we are ridiculed because we are
Yes.
breaking those old ways of thinking that go back hundreds and hundreds of years, right? We're not just talking one generation, as you said, your grandmothers, their mothers. We are breaking
Yeah.
all of those generations. I saw something the other day that said you didn't just burn witches, you burned women. When is it okay to burn women?
Yep.
So you think about it, and why are we now today, when we're trying to break these cycles, we're ridiculed for the way that we're raising our children to have a voice, right? Because nobody wants them to have a voice.
Trial. It's a spiritual witch trial instead of a physical witch trial. Instead of burning us at stakes, you're burning us verbally. You're destroying our reputations. You're putting things on social media. You're defamating characters. You're bullying, basically, because your comfort or your fear, ends where someone else is just beginning, or vice versa. And it's kind of gross in a way if you think about it. And it's
Well, most
not
often you're looked at as a threat, right?
Yeah.
You're threatening
I
to
said that,
them.
I said that to Olivia too. I said, when you want to walk a path of consciousness and choosing in your life, because that's all consciousness is. It's having the ability to choose in the moment. It's having the ability to have that duality and choose in the moment. And when you have that, then you are the living proof, kind of like Jesus Christ, not to get spiritual, but like, it's just the living proof of something. And I asked Olivia, I said, when mommy proves you wrong, how do you feel? And she goes, not good. And I said, right, it makes you angry, right? And she's like, yeah. I said, so if you are the living proof to the wrong in someone else, their natural reaction is to hate you. Their
Yes.
natural reaction is to reject you. Their natural reaction is to be angry, because you are physically the living proof. that it exists, that it can be done with choice and heart and will.
That's so powerful. It really is so powerful. When you think about it, we have all this power within us, but we weren't taught that. And now as we're teaching, it's amazing to watch the steps that we've taken, right? Because none of us are perfect. Keegan and I are not perfect either. We still make mistakes.
I'm still
And as I
struggling.
said, sometimes I look at her and I'll be like, what the hell? Like, but it's true. It's like we're still in this process of healing as well. So if you are, just give yourself grace. That's like one of the biggest things I keep going back to, is because I never gave myself grace. So I think giving yourself grace for where you are, where you're at, what you're doing, what tools you have, the abilities that you have. And if you are a cycle breaker, look at that and, really understand what that means, not only for you, your children, the children after them, because it does go so deep and it does continue on, and it is cellular, right? It will be contained within them, because even in your daughter and my daughter, they have the cells of their grandmothers and great grandmothers. So that generational healing that's needed is still within them, even though we're talking about how we give them the ability to be free and allow themselves to speak and use their voice, right? They still have this wound within them, right? It doesn't just disappear.
They do. No, I read this book. It's called It Didn't Start With You. And it literally talks about that, how like the woman is born with all the eggs she'll ever have. So if you're a mother and you carried a girl, you already carried your future grandchildren, and your vibration is imprinted into them, and your struggle is imprinted into them. And how our genes are expressed, so are emotions, so are fears, so are these genetic codes that create, autoimmune diseases and all these things. I know that's way woo-woo, but it's true. Like, it triggers these things. So you can't remove yourself so far that you don't remember where you come from. You have to have the grace, and you have to reflect. Because if you're not looking at what you don't like, my mom always told me this. She said, don't become what you don't like. And that was her only phrase. And I never understood it until I started peeling back the onion. And that's what that means. Like, you can't run so far from what you don't want to be that you don't remember where you came from, because then where are you going?
Yeah.
Where are you going? You have to know. And then that is where we can give ourselves the superpower. That is where we can give ourselves the voice to carry on, because the struggle may not be yours, but it's not, that means you stop it from going forward, because you can recognize it's not yours. If it's not yours, then you can let it go.
Yeah. That's
And
really profound.
I think comparison is the problem right now. We have too much in our faces with social media and the news and all of it, that people are forgetting where they came from and how far they've come, because they're still not looking like the person that they might be admiring, or they're still not looking like something that they're comparing themselves to, and they're completely negating all of the work.
Yes.
And then it's leaving the room for their kids to assume what they're not looking at.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, the world we live in, and that's the world we live in, unfortunately.
It is.
And for daughters, that's something that I think is really important to stress upon with them, the power of, comparison and not comparing. And then also not even, how do I put it? Like, not only comparison, but trusting, right? Because we have a really hard time trusting other females. We have a hard time trusting that they're genuine and authentic in the help that they give or the support that they offer. And often we get stuck in that, well, they must want something from me. If they're doing this, they must want something to get out of this.
Yep. Yes. Or like somebody has some kind of secondary motive. And I think that stems even hundreds and hundreds of years. That stems from biblical stories. That stems from stories being told down time after time. That is, women being scapegoated on everything. It's a lot that has to be healed. And it's not just one generation. It's not 2 generations, not 3 generations. It's an entire society.
Yes.
And we fight about things that are pointless and don't mean anything. And we're not even understanding what unification is before we're dividing. we've never had unification
No, never.
to start dividing each other.
And the power of love. I truly believe, I mean, it might sound woo woo or whatever, but I do believe in the power of love. I do believe in the power of spreading that love and envisioning it coming out from your heart and spreading around you and going, peace and love. I think I said it the other day in Tim's Father's Day post, but support, laughter, and love are the most powerful tools that we have, and how often we forget to use them. So before we finish up, is there anything you want to add?
That I'm on vacation right now. And
I love it.
Yes, and I am very blessed and grateful in my life that I have the opportunity to take my daughter somewhere that I visited at as a child and brought so much joy and happiness. And before I came here, I think I told you last show, I've really been having creator's block with many things in my life, and heart chakra stuff going on, heart space stuff going on, where I'm getting to that age, I think, where many of the women that came before me got bitter. I think they got to this point in their life where, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like, there's no left or right. It just has to change. Like, it's not a left or right choice. It's just, This is where I'm at, and it has to change. It cannot be like this anymore. It can't feel like this anymore. I don't know what that means, but no more tolerating. Done. And
I'm there with you.
yeah. And it was, I know it was closing me off. Like, I know from my journaling and my art and how I was viewing things and stuff like that, that it was affecting me, and I was forgetting the child, and I was forcing the world, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
And coming here on vacation, I've only been here for 3 days, and seeing my kid do and say and feel the same ways that I felt when I was her age has put me in this childlike feeling of just magic, and how it all is magic. And I'm grateful because I'm taking this moment to be present in it. And so I think that I want to just tell viewers, like, you don't have to go on vacation. It can just be, a 2-hour break out in the woods or something. But if you're struggling to connect with your child, bring them somewhere that you used to love. Do something with them that you used to love, and see how they react to it. See how they give back, and it will open you back up to the child inside of you, and it will make you remember. And sometimes it will bring up hard things, because it does. It brings up parts of you that were smushed too, but it's worth it, because then it allows you to change. It allows you to choose differently, and it wakes you up to that part of you that wasn't yours to carry. And it's been a gift watching her, so stupid as looking for sea glass, and her and I spending 3 hours looking for sea glass and picking up each piece and looking at it and all the colors. She's an artist too. We were fascinated by the colors and how they're all different, and the shapes and the sizes, and how this one reflects our eyes and this one reflects our skin. And what could the ocean be if Mother Earth was a person? What is the ocean? If we're 70% water and the Earth's 70, like, it was all of this magic and this talk, this deep connection of talk that we wouldn't have had at home.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had in the daily bustle and rustle of life and bills and the matrix and the pressure of everything. So give yourself the gift of that. Remember what you loved as a child, and bring your child to it. Give it to your child as a gift, and see how they react for the first time or a new time,
I love that. And even at home, you can do that too, because I know Sophia spends so much time doing her art. And I often forget because I'm stuck in the masculine 3D world,
Yeah,
um, to do that. And I know when I do that, it opens up a whole nother space for myself, that it's almost like
exactly.
meditative, that I'm there and I'm creating with her and we're doing things together. So I see, absolutely, I love that you shared that and that you're able to be so present. And I think often that's one of the big things that we forget is being present, especially even
Yeah,
on vacation. Like I find myself, scheduling things and it's like, well, maybe I don't want to do anything that day. And the girls
yes,
are like, well, we got to do this and that. And I'm like, well, can't we just like wait till we get there and see how it
and
goes? And
feel
then,
it. And
yeah,
feel it. What are we feeling like doing?
yeah, And so I
You
think it's
know?
a powerful process. And I love that you shared, that you and Liv can be by the ocean and spend so much time being present, looking for sea glass and enjoying that time together. There's no
Yeah.
greater power than the power of love and being present.
And I love that you bring up art, because something as simple as sitting down with your child and creating, not coloring a coloring book, but like literally making something, taking markers, taking crowns, taking paper, cutting it up, make something, right? That is the proof of magic right there. You are literally pulling something out of your brain, using these tools that you have in front of you and creating something that did not exist yet.
Yes.
It is the simplest gift that we can give anybody. Art is a gift. It's our culture. Everything is art. Everything. The clothes you're wearing, the glasses on your face, your makeup, your house, your couch, your handbag, the picture on your wall. Everything is art. The way you shop, everything is art. And
Yes.
it is the simplest form of magic that you can prove exist.
And it was always one thought in someone's head before it came a physical reality.
And it's literally the proof that God exists. He thought us into existence, or the universe exists. It thought us into existence. And we're mirrors of that. It's these simple things. Even if you're just sitting with a pencil and drawing spirals on a paper, you've created something that did not exist before.
Yep.
That is
Absolutely.
magic.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, thank you for joining Keegan and I today and witnessing this truth with us, acknowledging your pain and taking the steps necessary to heal. If you're in the middle of your own healing, you should know this, that you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. So until our
Yes.
next episode, which is coming up next month, and we don't know what it is yet, but we will find out, and we will let you know. But I look forward to being back again with Keegan and talking to you. And if you want to like, share, comment, we love to hear your thoughts on our show today. We'll see you next time.
And
Go
one
ahead.
more thing. If you've been told or cursed to get one just like you, take it as an
Mm.
invitation to take it as an invitation to love yourself again.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that because I heard that many times. You're going to have one just like you. And I did. And I'm so grateful because I couldn't imagine my life without someone like me.
Yeah. It's an invitation to love yourself deeper. You should take it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll see you next time. Bye.